Okay, folks, thanks for joining us today. Welcome to our first candidate workshop of the Officer Elections 2021. I'm Bradley, I'm the Student Representation Coordinator at the Students' Union. So I'm also the Deputy Returning Officer for the election. So it's my job to make sure the elections run smoothly, make sure you as candidates are happy and have got everything that you need. It's also my job to make sure you follow the rules as well. But I'm sure we're not going to have any rule breaking this year. And outside of elections, I work with the officer team quite closely and make sure they're supported in running their campaigns. And we also got Gagana with us as well, if you want to introduce yourself, Gagana.
Hi everyone, very nice to meet you. I'm the Communications and Events Coordinator at ISU. So I'm helping officers with their comms, and I'm also in charge of coordinating our big events like Freshers Refreshers Week and lots of other events that we run. And today I'm gonna be focusing on the digital side of your campaign this year, because as you know, it will be mainly digital, and I'll be giving you some tips and tricks around social media.
Great, thanks. So as I say, this is the first of 4 workshops that we're going to be running throughout February. All the workshops are optional to candidates, but we would strongly recommend attending some of them. As Gagana said, it's going to be a difficult and interesting year to run as a candidate. You're going to have to think of some quite creative ways to campaign this year. So hopefully these workshops will give you a bit of a start of some ideas about how to do that. And obviously it's a good chance to ask questions. Next slide. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what is a campaign and what the point of running one is. We're going to go through 5 sort of key steps that we think are important in any campaign, and there's going to be lots of practical examples throughout as well. So it sounds obvious, but bear with me. What is a campaign? So the actual definition of a campaign in an online dictionary I found is an organised course of action to achieve a goal. I think the key bits here are that it's organised and that you've got a really clear goal in mind. So the questions for you that you need to ask in putting together your campaign in these elections is, what are you trying to achieve? Now, obviously, you're trying to win. You want to win the election and become the officer for whichever role you're running for. But there'll be a reason why you want to do that as well. You know, why do you want to win? What is it about you? What is it about the things you want to achieve that you want to get across to students? What is it that gives you the edge, do you think, over other candidates? And because ultimately that's the thing that's going to help you win. You know, you need to convince voters to choose you over other candidates. So in terms of what you want to achieve with this campaign, I think the question really is what message are you trying to get across to voters? Because that's what will get you in that post, and that's what will win the election for you. It's telling a compelling story and a compelling message to potential voters. So we've got 5 steps that we're going to go through to help you answer that and help you start thinking about how you're going to deliver that message to students in the campaign. So the first step is what we've just talked about, is the message. So everyone will be asked to do a manifesto as a candidate. So on the nominations page on the website, you'll be asked to fill in a manifesto but before the voting starts. And really, this is a really good place to start thinking about why is it that you're running? What is it that you want to get across to students? What makes you different to other candidates, or what makes you particularly well suited to be the next President Education or the next BAME officer for the Students' Union? So I think a really good place to start thinking about all of I think this should come first before anything else. It should be a time for you to sit and think about, what do I want to get across to voters in this election? So I think that there's 3 key sort of things that people tend to put in their manifestos. The first thing is a bit about who you are. You know, students want to be able to sort of relate to people that are going to represent them. So I think a little bit about who you are, you know, whether that be the course you're studying, other things you've done in the past that are relevant to the role, that sort of thing. And I suppose almost like an informal version of a CV. Why is that relevant? So, you know, it might be that you've campaigned on a certain issue before that's relevant to your officer role. Tell students about that. Tell them about why that's relevant to the role that you're running for, and a little bit about why you're running as well. What motivates you to run? So obviously everyone wants to run because being an officer, it looks great on your CV, and you might think you'll be able to do a really good job at it. All those things, and those are important, and that's great. But I suppose, you know, what else sets you apart from other people? Because that'll be true of everyone. Everyone will hopefully want to put it on their CV, and it makes them look employable. But why have you chosen that role, and what do you think you'll bring to that role? And I suppose really the final thing is people want to get a sense of what you would do in that role as well. I think particularly for the full-time roles, people really want an idea of so as you would call them policies, but ideas. You know, what would you want to run on if you were elected? What would you do as that officer to make students' lives better? And you don't always have to have, you know, a completely, you know, fully costed, borne out plan, but students would like to have a sense of an idea of what it is you might do in that role. So all of those things, so who you are, why you'd be good in that role, why you're running, and what you would do in that role. That's all of that is your message, and that should be in your manifesto. Like I say, it doesn't have to be hugely detailed. You only do have 500 words in the manifesto, but students should be getting a sense of those things in your manifesto. I think writing that manifesto is a good place to start, to help you think about it in your own head, and to think about it and think through it in your own head as well. In terms of when you're talking to students, obviously you want to throw all of that at students every conversation you have. So what you want to do is try and break it down. I think when you're trying to have a discussion or a debate, rule of three is always really good. So if you can list 3 quick things that can stay with people, so that's really good. So if you might have lots and lots of ideas of things you want to change on campus if you're elected. If you could try and either pick the top 3 or find a way to fit them all together and that they fit into 3 different themes, then that would be really good. Actually, you could list 3 quick points on a graphic online, or if you're doing a really short video, you could rattle off 3 quick points. If you're messaging someone on Facebook, if you could just do 3 quick bullet points of you know, if you take away nothing else from this conversation, remember these 3 things. So if you can take all of that stuff that you want to do and condense it into 3 easy to remember points, it's good, because then it's easy for you to remember, but it's also easy for voters to remember when they're then going to vote. They can think, oh, I know that person, they said they wanted to do that and that, and that's great, I can remember what they said to me. I think really you should look at everything else we'll talk about in the rest of this presentation, develop your content around that. So if you've got these 3 simple points that you want to get across to voters, and you know what that message is, you can have that in your head for everything you do. So if you're asked a question at the candidate question time, you're like, well, that relates to point 2 of my 3 points, so I'm going to get that point across in the answer to this question. If you're creating a poster, you might want to put a tagline relevant to those points on the poster. Yeah, if you're planning your social media content for the week of voting, you can make sure, you know, I want to make sure I get across all those 3 points in that schedule. I think to think about, and we'll go into some of this in a bit more detail as we go out, but there are 11,000 students, more than 11,000 students at the University of Suffolk. I think the figure's probably a little bit higher this year, but only less than half of those are actually based at Ipswich. So depending on the role you're running for, this might not be relevant. So for instance, school officers only represent schools based at Ipswich. So if you're running to be a school officer, you'll only have to be concerned about Ipswich students. Again, if you're running to be a campus officer, you'll only have to be concerned about the students on that campus. But for the full-time roles and for the liberation roles, there are students actually across a number of different campuses for Suffolk. So whenever you're planning your campaign, whenever you're thinking about the issues you want to campaign on, if you became an officer, always have in mind that actually there's lots of different demographics at the university, and And there might be different ways to reach them in terms of campaigning, but there might also be different needs that those students have as well. There's also lots of liberation groups. So obviously we have our liberation officers in this election, but there's lots of different groups. And when you're thinking about a certain policy, it might affect one of those groups differently, or there might be different ways to communicate with some of those groups. And also in terms of level of study, so obviously we've got undergraduates, but we've also got quite a lot of postgraduate students now, apprenticeship students, foundation courses, and some students are part-time and distance learners. I suppose everyone is to some degree a distance learner at the moment. So in previous years, people might not have thought, in previous campaigns, people might have very much focused on in-person campaigning on campus, which might have missed part-time or distance learner students. But I suppose this year you're going to have to be tailoring everything to be online anyway. But it's important to think about in terms of when things eventually return to normal, anything you might want to campaign on might affect those students differently. And so it's still worth thinking about those students when you're coming up with your ideas. So that's messaging. So the key takeaway there is have a core message that you can put across in an easy to understand and memorable way to voters, and be always thinking about that. Every interaction you have with a voter, think what message do I want them to leave here with? What do I want to communicate to them? The second step is about building a campaign team. So it's always really helpful if you can bring other students into your campaign team to help with your key tasks. If you really want to be getting high numbers of students voting for you, you're not going to be able to do all of it on your own. You're going to need to get support from friends and classmates. So it's really useful because it helps you tap into a wider set of skills and ideas. So you might have lots of great ideas for campaigning, but there's always going to be things you haven't thought about, or there might be reasons why something you've come up with won't work, or there might be a better way to do it that you've just not thought about. And the more students on your campaign team and the more students you've talked these ideas through with, the better your campaigns are going to be. And of course, it helps you reach other networks as well. So you might not have anything to do with any sports at all, but you might have a couple of friends that are really active in sports teams. And if you bring them into your campaign team, they'll be able to advise you on how to better reach those students and how to communicate with those students. And of course, it might give you more access to skills as well. So I'm a writer, so I love to write things. So when I was running in elections, I used to really, very rare for a candidate, but I used to love writing my manifesto. And I'd spend a lot of time thinking about how I'd worded my manifesto. I'm not advising you spend ages on it, but that's what I like to do. And I'm a writer and I love doing that. But I'm absolutely awful at graphic design. So I used to always try and get a friend on my campaign team to give me some advice and to give me a bit of help to designing things. And it works the same way in the staff team. I'm awful at that stuff still, and that's why we have Gagana. So Gagana can do these things for us. So it helps to have a campaign team because you then got access to a wider set of skills, and you don't have to rely on if you're like me, you don't have to rely on your own really bad graphic design skills. As we said, it helps you spread the message further than you'll be able to on your own. Actually, I think particularly during voting week, it can help you reduce the workload for yourself. So often voting week can be there can be a lot going on during voting week, and you'll have lots of things you want to do if you want to reach students. But if you've got a bit of a team behind you, then it means you don't have to be everywhere at once, and you don't have to be involved in every single thing that happens in your campaign because you've got other people that know what's going on and they know what the message is, and you can delegate tasks to them. It's important thinking about in terms of getting a core team, but also wider support. It's important to think about how much time people have. So not everyone is going to have hours and hours and hours they can give you during voting week. But they might have they might have 5 minutes spare in between lectures and they're happy to support you in a small way. So when you're trying to build up a team of supporters and you're thinking about what sort of things you want to ask people to do to help your campaign, bear in mind the different levels of support and time that people are going to have. So examples of really small asks might be that you might ask someone to share one of your posts on Facebook, and you're definitely going to want to ask them to vote for you and to remember to vote. The first thing, if anyone asks you, how can I help you? Remember to ask them to vote. And you'll be surprised, but people forget to vote. Even candidates forget to vote sometimes. So absolutely first thing to ask anyone that comes to you to ask if they can help is say, have you voted yet? And then the next thing is, maybe you could like and share some of our stuff on social media. Going up a notch, people that might have a little bit more time spare, you can get them to attend meetings. So you might want to hold some Zoom meetings throughout campaign week to check in with your team to see how everything's going, to plan the next couple of days. You can also get them to not just vote and share a post, but maybe they can message some of their friends. I think in my experience, I've not got like data on this, but from my own experience, maybe Gagana can come in on this. But if you put out a post on Facebook, or if you do a post in a group or something like that, it's going to be less effective than if you message people like on a personal level and tailor a message to a person individually. They're more likely to respond and engage with that, I think. So if you've got some people on your team willing to send out some messages to people they know, we're not encouraging like spam messaging loads of people in groups, things like that. But if there's people that are on your friends list or whatever, then you can sort of snowball something out. So you could put something out to a few friends about your campaign and then ask them to pass it on to a few of their friends as well. So you could do things like that. Do you think that's more likely to get a response, Gagana, than like mass messaging and things like that?
Absolutely, but Facebook will ban you if you're sending the same message more than 40 times, I think. So you have to really change at least the name or try and make it tailored and personal. But we'll talk a bit more about that later.
Great. And then, sorry, it's a little hard to read because it's such a small triangle. But it's then there'll be the really small number of people that are willing to give you loads of time. So maybe you've really inspired someone throughout your time as a student, or like it's your best friend that really wants you to win. Then there might be more time that they're willing to commit to you. So these could be the people that maybe help you create content for your campaign. They might spend time designing things with you. They'll be at all the meetings with you, and they might they might really have loads of ideas for your campaign and share those with you. So it's important to bear in mind that people are going to have different levels of time they're able to commit to your campaign. So bear that in mind and have your own pyramid of things that you want to ask of people. So you've got your message. You're really confident on what your message is and what you're trying to get across to students. You've got a small team together, and you've got a sense of how much time those people have got and what they're willing to commit to you. The next step is you need to start developing those materials that you're gonna use throughout your campaign. So we're going to hand over to Gagana in a minute, but just to get a sense of what we mean by material, this is a loose term, materials. Some of these things aren't really materials, but they're ways of getting across your message to students. So the first thing, which is usually something I would highly recommend, is leaflets. But this year we're advising, well, we're saying don't do leaflets basically this year, because leaflets are going to involve, it's going to involve either face-to-face communication, or it's going to involve you touching a load of leaflets and leaving them somewhere, and we wouldn't necessarily be able to control whether they've been quarantined and all that sort of stuff. So it just gets quite messy during COVID. So we're sort of saying don't do leaflets this year. If that changes based on government advice or anything like that, because obviously we're still over a month away from voting, we will update candidates. But as it stands, we're saying don't do leaflets at the moment. We're still happy for you to do posters on campus. So I mean, posters can double up as graphics potentially as well. So you can design stuff for social media and tweak it a bit to be a physical poster. So we'll issue more detailed guidance on where you can put posters up. And again, with posters, we're not wanting people to make special trips to campus to put up loads of posters. But if you're on campus anywhere and you've got some time after a lecture, we're happy for you to put posters up and things like that. And we'll probably what we'll do is try it, depending on whether staff are on campus at voting week or not, we might be able to put posters up for candidates in key areas like in the SU somewhere, to make sure every candidate, because you might be a candidate that's not able to get into campus for whatever reason. So we'll put more details out to candidates nearer the time, but we'll make sure if you want posters up, that we'll try our best to facilitate that, depending on staffing in the office and things like that. So posters is another avenue. What I would say with posters is think about where you're going to put them. So where are they going to be, particularly at the moment, because there's so few students on campus. where our students are likely to see it. You know, there's no point in putting it in a corner of the room near the toilets or something that no one's going to see. You know, you want to put posters in key areas that students can have access to. Lecture shout outs. So these are usually a real staple, particularly for the full-time officer roles. I would normally recommend people, you know, sort of hitting the big lecture theatres every hour on the hour throughout campaign week. Obviously, we're not wanting candidates to be trying to go into any physical lectures that aren't their lectures at all. But we're speaking to the university, and we're going to try and figure out a way to see if we can get some guidance for candidates to be able to go into online lectures. So obviously, absolutely do a shout out in your own lectures that you're in. This is where a campaign team helps as well. So you can get your campaign team to do shout outs in their lectures if they're on a different course to you. But we're going to work on trying to get ways for candidates to have a bit of a presence in lectures, because lectures can be a really useful way to reach students as well. So we'll put more details out about that closer to voting week. So we'll have our own candidate question time. We have that during voting week every year, and we think this year it's probably going to be more important than ever, because it might be one of the few chances you get to have a live conversation potentially with a student. Obviously, it'll be over Zoom. But there's no reason why you can't do your own Q&A sessions as well through Facebook or Instagram or other platforms. You could do a pre-recorded video and talk about a certain issue that you want to campaign on, or you could hold it a live Q&A if you're confident enough to do that, and you could get your campaign team to share that online and get people to submit questions. That could be a nice way to engage with students that feels a bit more personal than a comment thread on Facebook might. The SU website as well. So obviously we'll be doing loads of comms about voting during voting week, but we're also going to try and create a space on the website for candidates as well. So we're going to build a candidate section on the website and give each role a page on the website. So you can send through. What we're recommending is that people send through a video to us, and we can upload that video. So then there's one place where you can get your video on the SU website, and people can see that. And we'll encourage voters to look at that page before they vote to get a sense of what candidates are like. You can have some text on there as well if you want, but people are probably more likely to engage with a video than large chunks of text. But we'll give you more details towards the end of this presentation about when you need to submit those sorts of things by. And then the final thing is social media, and there's loads of stuff on social media. So I'm going to hand over to our resident expert on social media. Back to you, Gagana, in case.
Thank you. Is that me, the expert? Right. So just as a disclaimer, before I start, I know it's obvious, but please don't start your comms before you know what your message is. There is a reason why your message is step 1 and not step 5 or step 3, because everything should be based around your message. Everything should be based around what you want to achieve, why people should vote for you. So really do that first, and don't start designing social media posts, and don't start thinking about colors and videos before you have your main point in your head. Can I have next slide, please? And I really want you to talk to me in the chat. If you don't want the others to see it, send it just to the panelists. Please let me know, what do you want me to talk about today? What are your expectations? What do you want to find out? Is there a specific reason why you're here? And I appreciate that you're spending time, precious time, attending this webinar. So tell me, please. Let me know. What do you want to know? What do you want to hear from me today? Let me know in the chat. Or do you know everything? Is that a hard question? No expectations. You don't have expectations.
Maybe they want to know everything rather than they do.
Okay, right. So you won't be disappointed then if you don't have expectations. Oh, we have one question. Oh, this is one we will answer later about lecture shoutouts. Okay, best ways to promote on social media. Okay, we'll talk about that. Anything else? Well, keep talking to me. I'll be reading both the Q&A and the chat. So during the whole webinar, you can ask questions, comments, and share. So what we will cover today is your social media strategy. I'll give you loads of ideas for social media engagement. I'll talk a little bit about copyright, and I'll talk about lots of other stuff. What we will not have time for today, which is important, but we'll cover in another session, we're not going to talk about content creation. So we're not going to talk about designing, creating posters, creating videos. There are workshops coming for that, so check those out. We're not going to talk about sponsored ads. This is a completely different, huge topic, which I will do a separate video on. We're not going to talk about photo tips, because again, we're preparing something for it. And probably there'll be things that you want to know, which I will not be able to cover today. Let me know what they are, and then I will record a separate video, or I will email you. Okay, hopefully you are happy with that. Can I have the next slide, please? No? Oh, yeah. Right, so again, what is your message? And maybe you'll be tired of this, but it's so important to have a message which people understand, which is why I wanted to use this slide, because I don't understand it, these messages. So sometimes you may think that your message is clear, but to someone, to a student who has never been involved in issue, it might look like a completely different language or like some characters that they don't understand. So if you had some ideas, if you've had a chance to think about what is it that you're going to campaign about, take a minute and write down one sentence that you think your core message might be. And I know it's early days and you're not sure yet and you have a whole month to think about it, but let's just take this time. If you have a pen around you, or if you want to type it on your keyboard or on your phone, and write something that comes to your mind. What would be the message of your campaign? If you want to share it in the chat, please do. You don't have to. If you want to keep it private, keep it private. If you want to talk, there is a button you can press and I can allow you to talk. Just let me know. And that can be easily arranged. So yeah, just throughout this workshop, try to relate to your campaign. Try to relate to what you're trying to achieve, because otherwise everything might sound good in theory, but what we want is for you to actually get some practical ideas, and we hope it will be beneficial. So I hope you've written something down. I hope it's not very long. I hope it's clear, and let's hope that when people see it, they will understand it. I assume no one wants to share because there's nothing in the chat. So let's move on. Next slide, please. To our winning checklist. And in the winning checklist, I have so many ideas and we can spend hours and hours discussing them. But some of them we won't be able to discuss in the great detail. Some of them Bradley already talked about. But in my opinion, your winning checklist starts with attending briefings and workshops, because first of all, they give you all the rules and deadlines that are very important. You don't want to miss one of those. Even if you have great ideas, you have to follow the election rules. Be honest and passionate. Might sound obvious, but it's so important that you're honest with yourself as well. Am I running for the right role? Is that for me? Do I really want it? Is there another role that's better for me? As you know, For example, vice president is now called president. So if you were thinking, oh, president sounds more prestigious, there's nothing like that anymore. But yeah, really think about what is the role that you're passionate about, which is the one that your heart desires. And deciding that for yourself will help you throughout the whole campaign. Of course, follow the rules. Bradley, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say on that point as well. I think if you've not convinced yourself that you're running for the right role, and if you've not convinced yourself that you would be a good officer, then how are you going to convince other students to vote for you as well? So I think that's really important. I think it's thinking, is this the right role for me? Is it the right time for me to go for this role? All that sort of stuff. And obviously, if you're not sure about any of that, if you look at the role and you're not sure and you've got questions, then we're really happy to have a chat with you about the role and help you figure that out yourself. But yeah, I think it's really important to ask those questions early on, and then you're better able to convince others that you're right for the role if you've asked yourself those questions, I think.
Thank you for the quote. We had someone share the quote. If you don't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? Is that a real quote? Right, moving on. Plan. So important to plan. This will be part of our next step, but also delegate. You will not be able to do it all yourself. Bradley has already given you ideas, and I'll give you a few more in the next couple of slides. But you don't have superpowers, and you only have 24 hours in a day. So voting week is not long enough for you to be physically able to do everything yourself. Okay, someone raised their hand. Would you like to speak? Okay.
You hear me?
Yeah.
I mean, about the plan, you need to do the plan before you start to delegate. For example, if you'll have access to go on the classes, yeah, from different classes, and to say, okay, we'll delegate for the officer and for the voting, all of that. Before we'll go to the classes, we'll need to have the plan to put in place, for example.
Yes, so we'll be able to give you a list of classes you'll be able to attend. So we're still working with the university in figuring this out, but yes, you all receive equal information and you all receive the same information, so you all have access to the same platforms as everyone else. So yeah, and very good point there about how important planning is and how important it is to plan before you delegate.
For example, you can start doing your plan from now and to be ready in that time when you delegate.
Exactly. Yes, you can start planning now. Yeah, that's why we're doing this workshop so early, so that you have enough time to actually start thinking about your manifesto, your core message, your pages. That will give you enough time until voting week.
In one question for Bradley, you said about the poster. For the moment, we don't have access to the campus because the COVID-19 and everything we're doing online. How can do that poster?
Yeah, so really good point about planning. Start plan. I'll answer your second question in a minute. Absolutely start planning now. Garner's right. That's why we wanted to do workshops earlier this year than we have in previous years to really give you time to plan. What I would say is you can definitely approach a small group of people to be part of your team, and ask them. You can tell them that you want to run, and you can ask them to be part of your team. But folks, please don't do anything that could be seen as campaigning activity before voting week happens. So you can tell a small number of people. I don't think we have a strict limit on how many, but just be sensible about it. And you can tell them you're running and ask them to help, and you can start designing all of your stuff. We strongly recommend you start designing all of your materials and things as soon as you can. But yeah, please don't start sort of announcing to large groups of people that you're running. In terms of the poster, so Obviously, you can design your poster now, and we'll be running workshops on how to help you design your poster. In terms of getting them printed and up on campus, that's something we can try and help with as a staff team. It will depends on where we're at in terms of our access to campus and how often we're going to be in the office. But yeah, we'll be in touch close to the time, because obviously we wouldn't want posters going up until voting week anyway. But in terms of actually getting them printed and up on campus, we'll try and help people that aren't able to get to campus. We'll try and give them a hand as a staff team, but we'll let candidates know more about that closer to
Yeah, for that I asked about the campus, because our campus is closed and will not be open.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you're on a campus that's fully closed and it still is in voting week, then obviously you won't be able to put posters up there. But there might be possibility, depending on the role you're running for, you might want posters up on Ipswich campus and things like that. But yeah, we'll obviously some of that might change closer to voting week anyway. Campuses that are closed now might be open or the reverse. So yeah, we'll touch base with candidates closer to voting week to check in on that.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Okay, so my next point is be fair to other candidates. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means later and about positive campaigning. But my main point here is no fake news, no lies. Just we rely on you being very honest and being fair to the others and not doing anything that someone else don't have the opportunity to do. And this is always down in our rules. Please read them, please read the handbook. But what we mean is you're all given equal access to the same budget, the same tools. So be fair. So you're not allowed to spend your own money, for example, if you want to do something. You're not allowed to do things like that. We're keeping the elections fair for everyone. Bradley talked about a campaign team, so important. And as a leader, it's so important that you motivate them, that you unite them around your idea, and to say please and thank you to them. You might be so busy during voting week, and sometimes you might forget that, but it's so important that you show them your appreciation, because they're the ones who help you win the role. So think about that. Have a think from now. How are you going to make sure that they feel supported, motivated, and appreciated? Next slide, please. Moving on with the winning checklist, as I've decided to call that. Practice your elevator pitch. Practice it in the shower, practice it in front of a mirror, practice recording it, practice recording it on an audio, on a video. You want to really see how it looks. You really want, this is your selling message. So you really want to be confident that it is the perfect elevator pitch. So spend some time figuring out what's your best angle and really focus on that. If you need tips for writing an elevator pitch, then there's plenty of like tutorials on YouTube. I decided to call it that, but you can call it whatever you want. Basically, convincing someone in a very quick 20-second period of time that they should vote for you. Next is self-care, and it's self-care. Looking after yourself and your team. So important. You don't want to burn out during voting week. You don't want to be working non-stop. You really want to have a plan. We know how stressful it can be, and we really want to make sure that you're well prepared, and you also block some time for you to relax. Also try to plan whether you have deadlines around the time of voting week, because it might be even more stressful if you need to submit assignments, if you have some exams. So plan that very carefully. In your handbook, you'll find information about budgeting. I'm not going to go over it now because it's explained in there. stick to your budget, basically. It's simple as that. But in order to do that, you need to really research what costs what. This year, you're not going to be spending lots of money on printing and flyering, so that should help. Focus on your campaign, not on others. At the moment, you don't know who are the other candidates running. At some point, you will find out who they are. And when you do, that shouldn't change your campaign and your focus and your motivation, because what's important is what you want to achieve, not what the others want to achieve. So some people get very distracted comparing themselves to others, comparing their posters, their manifesto, their ideas, their themes to others. And my personal observation is that this is never a good thing. It's not very productive, doesn't work out for them. So if you're focused on you and not on the others, this is much better. And moving on. Now I want to give you a few engagement ideas. They're a little bit more practical. Again, some of them we've already discussed. I've decided not to include examples in this one because I will be giving loads of examples in the 2 workshops that I'm also running, the poster one and the video one. It will be full of examples. So today is going to be a little bit more theory, if you like, but please let me know in the chat what you think. And again, if you want to speak, let me know as well. So some engagement ideas. We've discussed recruiting a campaign team. Again, if you haven't done it, take 30 seconds or a minute now and write down 5 people that you can think of who you really want to invite to be part of your campaign team. Like, do it now. Think about people who have different skills, and ideally people from different networks, different demographics, different cohorts, people who study different degrees so that they have a wider network themselves. If you can think of more, write down more. I want you to have at least 5 people. And when you have 5 people, please write done or something like that in the chat so that I know that you're not leaving this workshop without at least 5 people on your mind who you can invite to be part of your campaign team. And I'm not going to move on until you've all written down 5 people. Think about even people who you consider influential on campus, but you don't personally know, people that are involved in a sports team or have an Instagram account with a following. I don't know, people who you want to be associated with, people who in your eyes are positive people, and you want to invite in your team, who they are and why do you want to invite them? How can they help you? Can you all use the chat? Can you let me know how is it going? Are you struggling? And if you're struggling, why are you struggling? I'm not going to reveal your name if you just send your message to the panelists. Is that really hard? Is it really hard to think of 5 people? Or you've just left the workshop? Let me see. Did you want to talk again?
Yeah. I need to write on the message, or can I say to you that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, that's great.
Fantastic.
We don't need to know the names. We just wanted.
No, we don't need.
We wanted to know that you have the names. Is all we needed.
For the moment, I have 6, but I will have more than 6.
Fantastic.
That's a great
really
good
good.
start. Yeah.
Well done. I'm pleased to hear that. Pleased to hear that. Okay. Well, I would trust that everyone else has at least a few ideas. Is that correct? I hope you're here. Bradley, did you want to join or?
Yeah, just I suppose once you've got those names, whether you've got them now or you've got them later, and start thinking about, because it's one thing to just say to someone, "Oh, will you help me with my campaign?" You might not always get answers to that. Whereas if you could say, "Oh, could you help me do this specific thing on my campaign?" you might be more likely to get a response from someone. They might be more engaged with that. So once you've got your list of people, start also thinking about what you might ask them to do. So are they really good at graphic design? Are they someone that's got a really good following on social media, so you want them to be sharing all your stuff? So that's the next step in terms of building the campaign team, I suppose.
Absolutely. I hope you've already decided what's your message. If you haven't, that's fine. Always go back to that. If you need to revise it, if you need to change something, don't worry, just do it. Like, this is so important to get right. So if you need to go back to it during as your campaign planning comes together, please do. And now we come to the basic social media things that you will need to do, such as creating social media accounts specific to your campaign. So we strongly encourage you to create those. Why should they be specific? Because you don't want to use your personal ones where people can go back to I don't know, childhood pictures if you have any, or just personal things you've been sharing. It's so much better to have something specific dedicated to the role that you're running for. So I'll show you in a minute how to create one on Facebook, but it's pretty easy. You can do the same for Twitter, you can do the same for Instagram. If you want to do a TikTok, you can go for that as well. It's up to you which platforms you will use. But have something specific where all of your promotional materials will go. And have a hashtag. That's what we recommend. This hashtag could be the same as your tagline or slogan. And this is a little bit different from your message, because your message can be a little bit longer. It can have more into it, like more ideas. It can have a longer, more complicated in a way message and more sophisticated idea in it. And the tagline, it needs to be something very easy to understand, something very simple, something that people remember, something short, something like Obama's "Yes, we can," which he didn't think of on his own, by the way. One of his campaign team members suggested it, which is why it's so important to have a campaign team. So I guess what you're looking for is something that communicates the idea of your message, but sounds better. Is shorter. A lot of people connect it to their name. If you can think of a pun in a way that is related to your name, awesome, but you don't have to. Do you have any questions? Do you have any ideas already about a tagline or a slogan? Try to think of something inclusive, like that. Yes, we can. It's very positive. It's a positive language and includes everyone. So we can. So it's a very good example. It's a very well-known one, but when I think of slogans, I usually think of this one as a very, very inclusive one, very good one. And for the digital content, which we'll have a separate workshop for, stick to a style, something that is easily recognizable. And this can be the same background on all of your materials. This can be the same colors on all of your materials, or the same font, or the same picture that you use everywhere, but something that people would easily recognize when they see it, because I imagine lots of people will be sharing promotional materials on social media. So you want something that stands out. And moving on, I have a few more to this long checklist. Schedule this content. So step 4 of our long list will be about planning. So Bradley will mention that again, but it's so important that you schedule it, and you schedule it in advance. You don't want to waste time during voting week to schedule social media posts. It's very easy on Facebook to go on publishing tools and schedule everything in advance. So do as much as you can of that, and then you can post updates during the week. But anything that can be done in advance, do it in advance. It's a great idea to plan your own Q&A, of course, attend ours, but doing one yourself gives students the opportunity to ask you questions directly, and you can do that as a live. You can do that with video or without video. There's lots of ways you can do that. Podcasts are becoming very popular. So one idea is to run one yourself, but you can also record videos, and we'll have a separate workshop, I think in 3 weeks. But this year we'll be relying a lot on visual content, and which is why our tips for good photos are so important, and we're working on them, so keep an eye. You will receive them shortly. But one more engagement idea is to jump on a trend. So when I say jump on a trend, what do I mean? Like all the businesses that jumped on the Bernie Sanders meme trend, and they just used that and got lots of followers because they did something that, like if they were artists, they like painted something, or they did a Photoshop with like a picture of them on it. Like, you get the idea. Basically, they used it for their own benefit. They jumped on a trend that was already famous, that was already very popular, and they just used it to their advantage to get engagement on their social media. So think about what can that be for you. Obviously, it can be something very local, very university specific, but it could be something bigger. And obviously these things change, and what's trending now, it's not going to be trendy tomorrow, and so on. So you can't plan this as much, but keep thinking about it, keep reviewing ideas, and when you see something good, and if it's the right time, just jump on it. And don't forget to have fun. Like, elections are such a fun time, and I think you should enjoy it, and I think you should celebrate elections, and remember what it is all about. And you're all leaders, you're all amazing, and elections are a great thing. This is a democracy in practice, and it's just great. Bradley, do you want to say something about how great elections are?
Obviously, I love elections. It's my job; I have to. But it should be fun. You know, I think people worry loads about winning, and obviously everyone wants to win the election. But it's also a chance to talk to other students about things you care about and things you're passionate about, and talk about yourself. So everyone loves talking about themselves. So you know, have fun with it, and come up with the best plan you can. You know, put good stuff out there. You know, do a good job of the campaign, but try not to spend the whole time worrying about whether you're going to win or not either. Like, and you know, because nothing is going to come across worse to a voter than someone that's really, really serious and seems really concerned about whether they're going to win and get that vote or not. What will come across good to voters is someone that's obviously passionate about what they're doing and is also, you know, having a good time and is relatable. So yeah, elections week, if you don't stress yourself out too much, can be a great time. I've ran in student union elections before, and I was really tired at the end of that week, but I also had a great time and things I still remember years later. So yeah, definitely enjoy it as well.
Definitely. Okay, I have a few more slides, but if you have to go, this is all recorded, so you can watch it later. Don't worry about it. But again, if you have questions, please use the chat. because in our next workshop, we will mainly focus on visuals. I want to talk a little bit about text here and about how important it is for your message to be clear and short and easy to understand. The truth is, some students will read your manifesto, but most of them might not. Which is why it's very important that you try to communicate your message using short sentences and bullet points. Whether this is on the graphic that you have, like your poster or your social media posts, or whether this is when you talk to them, it should be easy to understand and very clear. And there should always be call for action when you talk and when you write. What do I mean by that? Ask them to vote, like have active verbs, not passive ones. People should know what to do after they've spoken to you. And always include the link if you are posting on social media.
I was going to say, make it easy for people. Don't just say, I'm running the SEO elections, please vote for me. Tell them how to vote for you, where to go. We'll have that over everything we put out, but they might not see one of our posts, but they might see yours. So please put the link on, make it easy for people.
Absolutely. Another idea is to tag us on your posts, because we have maybe larger audience than you will get, because our page has been going on for a long time. So more people will see your post if you tag us, because maybe we have followers that you don't have. So I think it's always a good idea. And during elections, we'll try and help you as much as possible. We'll be resharing the posts you're sharing. We'll be resharing stories. So if you tag us, that will help you a lot. One more idea to the checklist is to take quotes from people that you have helped in the past. So a lot of the candidates are already in some sort of they're already engaged either in a society or as a course rep, or maybe just helping course mate without any particular role, but they are already doing something. And don't worry if you've never done anything and you've not engaged in the past. Try to think of personal examples where you've helped someone. But if you get quotes, this is very powerful, and this is very important, because people can relate to that and they can see that, oh, we've already done so much. And please feel free to talk about your achievements, to talk about everything that you've done, because this is what makes you a unique candidate. If you've been a president of a society, absolutely talk about that. Take quotes from other committee members that you've worked with, or members of the society, or if you've been a course rep, take a quote from your lecturer. Even involve as many people as you can, and then use those quotes to emphasize your skills and your ideas, and draw on your past experience to try and win the election and develop your skills even better.
I think about how who you're getting quotes from. So, for instance, if you've got a manifesto point that you want to improve conditions in a certain way for postgraduate students, it might be a good idea to have a quote from a postgraduate student that says that they think that that's a really good idea and that they support you to run for that. So yeah, be clever about who you get quotes from and how you use those, because yeah, if you want to do something for a certain group of students, it's probably good to demonstrate that you've got some support from those students as well.
Yeah. Take 20 seconds and write down 3 people who you want to get a quote from. And when you're done, say done in the chat. Come on. Go on.
Sorry. You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't need names. I just need... Yeah?
Yeah.
You done?
Done.
Fantastic. Great. I hope everyone else is done as well. And then my last point on this slide is provoke discussion. This can be on your Facebook group, Facebook page, Instagram page, wherever you've decided to create a social media account. This can be in another page. I mean, in the new starters page, or like a group where you're a member of. Provoking discussion is really important. And here we're talking about a good discussion, like one where people contribute meaningfully, because it allows people to share their ideas. Maybe something great will come out of it. But provoking discussion is an amazing way to debate, to engage with students, to maybe meet people that you've never met before and see what they think on an issue, and think of ways of provoking discussion in a meaningful way. You can use posts on Instagram. You can ask students to ask you questions on Instagram stories, and then you can share your answers. You can decide to do like a Zoom or Teams discussion where you invite friends or your campaign team. There are lots of things you can do, but discussion is really good. Next slide, please. Bradley will talk about that more, but again, just a reminder: delegate and plan the work of your campaign teams. Focus on everyone's strengths. You are allowed to use their strengths. You are allowed to ask your friend who is better at writing to have a look at your manifesto, maybe add finishing touches, or for someone to help you with your poster, or for your friend who is good at putting a video together to help you do that. That's absolutely fine. Write down some suggestions for people of how they can help you. Think about what exactly is it that you want them to do for you. And again, ask your friends to do lecture shoutouts in their classes, because I think it's very powerful if someone who is already part of the group supports you and endorses you. And definitely take a note of cohorts you've covered. We don't want to spam people. And it's the same for messaging, so private messaging. I know it can get hard, but you need some sort of a system to know who you've already contacted, because if the same person receives 5 messages from 5 different people asking this person to vote for you, they're going to hate you, they're not going to vote for you. When I was a student, I was receiving lots of messages from different people asking me to vote for the same person, and I personally thought this is really annoying, because I've already said I'll vote for them. I don't need 10 more messages. But if you want to go with a more aggressive approach, I guess that's one way to do it. But bear in mind, there'll be different people, and some might be annoyed. I would personally recommend you keeping track of the cohorts you've engaged with. And definitely involve sports and societies. And this year, this is allowed and encouraged. Bradley, do you want to say more about that?
Yeah. So for the first year ever, I think ever, maybe in the past they're allowed to, sports and societies are allowed to endorse candidates this year. So we changed the bylaws. Student Council voted to change the bylaws last academic year. So I think this could be really useful for your campaign, particularly if you're running for a role and you've got manifesto points relating to sports and societies. But in general, any endorsement from a sports society could really help you promote your campaign and get the votes of their members. We will be asking that sports societies have to get a vote of their membership before they can endorse someone. So you can't just ask the president of a society, can you endorse me? And well, if they do reply to you, yes, that's fine, then it's not fine. So please make sure don't accept any endorsements until you've had confirmation that there's been a vote. We'll be asking for confirmation as well. They'll have to email me as the deputy returning officer before they're allowed to properly endorse. But make sure you're not trying to get an endorsement in that way, because as a candidate you get in trouble then as well. If it's something you knew nothing about, then that would be different. But yeah, I think it's really useful for sports societies to be able to endorse. So that's definitely something you should think about. Are there particular societies or sports that Maybe you've got friends in some of them that you might be able to convince to get a vote going. And obviously you have to convince more than 50% of the sports society, but obviously if you've got friends in that already, then they might be able to put in a good word for you when people are voting. Or maybe as sports society it's particularly relevant to your role. So I don't know, maybe a society that's like midwifery society, I think we've got, or something like that, might be relevant to the health school roles. So, yeah, things like that. So think is there a particular society that would, if they voted to support you as a candidate, would that look really good for your campaign? So yeah, another thing to think about.
Yeah. Okay, and then my next slide is about what are the things you should always bear in mind. What are the things that you should always have in your mind when you're doing whatever you're doing? So the first one, it is for real. Like if you win the election, you're gonna be offered a contract for a full-time job if you're running for the sabbatical officers, and if you win the election for the part-time, you will become the part-time officer. So it's for real. Like if you're not sure if you want to do it, think about it now, because once you win, it's for real. But at the same time, it's only an election, so it's not the end of the world if you lose. And I know it can be disheartening, and I know it can be very demotivating, and if it's important for you and if you've invested so much time and energy in it, it can feel like it's the end of the world, but it's not. So yeah, just bear it in mind. Very quickly, I don't want to spend ages on this, but during elections, people sort of, I don't want to say test their friendship, but some people will approach you and say, are you going to support me? Do you want to run as a team? And some people will be like, oh, I'm not sure. Like, or some people will feel awkward to say no. So there are some very, very difficult conversations that you will need to have. A few things to bear in mind. So have the difficult conversations if you need to. Say no if you need to and if you don't feel comfortable. But also don't burn bridges with people, because you might have to work together next year. So no matter how much you don't want to be supporting this person right now and you don't want to like run together, don't burn bridges with them, because you might both get elected on different roles and you might have to work together next year. So have this at the back of your mind the whole time, and don't get it personal if someone says no. If you ask them to be a supporter, they might have a reason for it. And also don't take it for granted that people you consider as friends will say no, they can't support you. It might be that at the moment they don't have the time to do it, or there's a different cause that they support, or there's a different candidate that they support and they haven't disclosed this yet to you. But it is for real, but it's not the end of the world. Think about both of those and be kind to your friends. What are you gonna mention, Bradley, here?
Just on it is only an election. So I ran when I was in my third year, a very distant time it seems like now, and I put in loads of effort and I lost. But I don't regret running at all. It sounds really cliche and cheesy, but I had such a great week doing it. I learned so much putting together that campaign and getting out there. And you know, I had a great lot of laughs with my campaign team during that week, and I got to speak to loads of students about issues I cared about. So yeah, like losing isn't the end of the world. You know, obviously you want to win, but you can still have a great time and still achieve something. You know, you can still have those conversations with students about the issues you care about afterwards as well. So yeah, the one thing I always say to people is there's lots of reasons not to run, but being worried about losing shouldn't be one of them. I think if that's the only thing stopping you from going for a role, then you should probably be running for the role, because don't worry about losing. You can't control it. You can just do your best to prepare.
Exactly. We have a very good question, which is how do we talk to people running to a different role than us to potentially talk about supporting each other? I think at the briefings, The
Yeah.
candidate briefing, yeah.
Yeah, so we're having a candidate briefing on the it's the week before voting, so it's the Wednesday before. I can't remember what date that is. It might be the 3rd or something. It's in the candidate handbook, whatever date that is. So it's the Wednesday before voting opens. So all candidates. So obviously these workshops are optional, but everyone will have to attend a briefing. So either the main briefing, or if they can't make one, they have to arrange another one with me. So you will get a chance to meet candidates there. We will also be running candidate breakfasts each morning during voting week, and we're still looking at options of how we do that, but we're going to try some quirky online ways to do that. So you might get to interact with other candidates that way. We'll probably release. We've not decided exactly when we'll release candidate names yet, but it will probably be sometime the week before voting week. So we'll release those all publicly, but we'll probably send an email to candidates letting you know who's running against you and who's running in the other positions as well. So you'll be free to sort of contact people based off that as well. Yeah, you might maybe you've heard on the rumor mill people running, so it's always worth reaching out to someone if you think, or maybe they're not thinking of running, but you think they would be great at running. Maybe you've got a friend that would be great for a particular role that isn't your role, so you don't want to necessarily encourage them to run against you. Maybe you do, I don't know. Yeah, if you think your friend would be great in one of the roles, then maybe suggest that to them. Maybe sometimes people just need a little nudge from someone, or it's enough to be told that someone else thinks you'd be great at something, and that might be enough for them to go for it.
Absolutely. I've seen so many people who have run for elections in the past for societies and other roles who exactly had this little push from a friend. So yeah, if you know someone who would be great, why not run together? And a few other more boring things to bear in mind. Always the election rules. Anything you do.
Please.
Copyright, please, as well. And that goes for the videos as well. Because otherwise we'll get our YouTube account banned if you because we want to upload all of your videos. Copyright, if you're using in social media or in your promotional materials images that are not yours, always have the source, like I've had here, the image source, and the internet is not a source. I mean, I know you're students and you know these things and you know how to reference, but I just need to say it one more time. We will be doing an SU frame, like I voted frame. And this was just an idea if you wanted to do one as well. I don't know if you want to clash it with our one, because our one will be potentially for anyone who has voted, we'll be able to change their profile picture on Facebook with I voted. But if you wanted to do I voted for this person and you want to personalize it, then one idea.
And on the election rules, you can find them all in the handbook on the candidate hub. If you have any, we will be doing a briefing in the candidate briefing. That's mainly what we'll talk about. So that's the boring one that you will have to attend. So we've tried to make the workshops a bit more interesting. But the candidate briefing will go through all the rules. So make sure you're all briefed on them. If you look at the handbook between now and then, and there's anything you're not sure about, or if it's not mentioned in the rules and you're not sure, am I allowed to do that? It's better to check with me first. I'd rather hear about it before you've done it than afterwards. So if you're not sure about something, if you're not sure if something's against the rules, just drop me a message and I can talk to you about that.
Next slide, please.
Oh yeah, that's me. Sorry.
So very quickly, I want to talk to you about likes and social media engagement in general, and a mistake that I've made as well when I was running for, I wasn't running for a full-time role, I was running for a part-time role, and I got lots of likes that meant nothing because they weren't the right people supporting me and liking. This is very important. This is an easy mistake to make, and one that you just need to be aware of. The fact that your mom likes your picture or your campaign account, that's very nice, but she can't vote. So in this instance, her like doesn't mean anything. So all we need is more likes It's not true if they are your mom's likes. In this instance, like in the elections, in the context of elections, in case your mom is a student at the University of Suffolk, her like doesn't mean much. So and that goes for everyone who is supporting you, which is what I meant by when you're creating the accounts, you ideally want them to be separate because you ideally want to target voters, not just any people. Someone said they will get their mom to enroll. That's one idea as well. It will get you one more vote. So my point is, getting lots of friends and lots of people you know to engage in your social media account can only help you so much. It wouldn't be able to help you actually get the real votes because only the eligible students can vote. So please be very mindful of that. Who can vote? Where should your efforts go? Your efforts should only go to people who can vote. The people who can't vote, you can spend time with them at another time when it's not elections week. And how to create a Facebook page. I know you know how to do it probably, but when you go to pages, there's one, create a new page, or you can go directly to facebook.com pages creation. You'll be asked for a name, which will be a unique one, for a cover photo, for a profile picture, for a category. So it's very easy to set up. Please keep them private until we say that you are allowed to go public. So save them as a draft. Don't have any publicity materials in advance. You'll find all the dates in the candidate handbook. This is very important. So no campaigning is allowed prior to the start of campaigning. And I had a question at the beginning when I asked you about your expectations. Someone said, is there anything to avoid on social media? Yes. And we would, as an issue, would like to encourage positive campaigning, and not only encourage, but it's in our rules as well. So you'll be penalized if you spread fake news and other hate speech and bullying. So it's not only an encouragement, it's the rules as well. But please think about common sense. You are allowed to criticize. Of course, you are allowed to criticize. You can talk about the points of the other candidate running for your role. You can talk about why yours are better. You can talk about whether theirs are realistic or not. You can criticize them. You can criticize the nature of their manifesto point if you want. Of course you can, but only if you do it in a constructive and respectful manner, and with accuracy and fact checking. And I've written down in brackets, no fake news, please. So what I mean here is only if you know for sure that what they're proposing won't work, you need to have the facts in order to say their point is useless, it doesn't work. You need to have the argument, you need facts to make the argument that their point is unrealistic. So if you are planning in your hustings or in your social media promo to touch on other people, because we haven't said you're not allowed to do that. So if you want to do that, do your homework, check your facts, do it respectfully, and think about the fact that you're representing the issue the whole time. You're representing the issue at the University of Suffolk. So how do you want to be seen as a role model and as a representative of our institution? And if you're running for a sabbatical role or for any other role, what is the image that you want this institution to have? So you don't want fake news, you don't want people who are disrespectful and who are bullying others and are sharing hate speech. And my last point here is no drama llama. And when we've had these workshops in person, people are usually laughing and ha ha ha, who is going to do that? Who is going to be dramatic? And what actually happens is during voting week, everyone is dramatic and everyone is writing emails saying this person did this, but he said that. And people get a little bit childish sometimes. So please, no drama llama. Of course, if someone is breaking the rules, email us, of course, like for things like that. But don't get too preoccupied with what the others are doing, and focus on your campaign, on your positive campaign. Pardy, do you want to say something more on this?
Yeah, just if you like if you think someone's doing something they shouldn't be, email me, let me know, and then just leave it with me, and I'll decide, and I'll work with the Democratic Procedures Committee who look over complaints and things as well. We'll decide whether something else needs to happen, and we'll let you know about that, and we'll let them know about that. So all you need to do is send us an email, and then it should be gone from your mind at that point. Just crack on with your campaign, and if something more needs to happen, then we'll be in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have only one more slide before my questions, really. And
there have to be.
And the point of this is done is better than perfect. So if you are running for US president or something like quite big, you'd have had a comms team, you'd have had researchers, you'd have had speech writers, you'd have had professional videographers, really good digital marketing experts, you'd have had a strategist on your team, and you don't. So you and your friends will have to take the role of a strategist, a researcher, a speechwriter, and that's great. That's such a great opportunity for you to develop new skills, to try new things. But don't be too hard on yourself. Done is better than perfect. Writing a manifesto which is honest and in your style is much better than having the perfect manifesto, because it's you who are doing it. You're all students, and the other candidates are students as well. So don't have expectations that are too high. And if you are in doubt about if something is good enough, just think about what we discussed. It's just an election. So yes, it's for real. Yes, it's very important, but it's an issue election. So you can share a funny meme, even if it's not perfect. You can be honest, you can have fun. Just do it. And
I think you can get more out as well. So like when I ran, I did like 3 different videos on each of my, remember the rule of 3. So I had like 3 main points in my election, and I did like a really short little video for each point, and I put that out on 3 different days of the election. Now I could have spent ages trying to make this a really slick professional video, and like, I think it'd be good to have one slick like sort of main election video. Not saying don't do that, but I wanted, you know, a quick chat, almost like a chat in a pub sort of video with me, back in the days when people could have chats in pubs, and it you know, I could have spent ages trying to make that look really slick, and that would have distracted me from other areas of campaigning that probably would have got more votes. It probably would have reduced the amount of video content I could put out, so there was less stuff on my social media, and it would have been me talking about issues less than otherwise. So I sort of just settled for having quite a simple sort of video of me just talking quite simply, and it wasn't like really rehearsed either. And so if you're confident to do it in that way, but and obviously I'm not suggesting like you do necessarily like a video in your PJs or something. Like still make a bit of effort, but it doesn't have to be like really like perfect, polished corporate sort of stuff that you're putting out all the time. Because if you try and make everything that level of polished, you might end up just taking time away from other activities. So yeah, you don't want to be putting rubbish out, but it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect either.
Absolutely. And also today we gave you so many ideas. Take time and just think about all of them and curate them. Only select the ones that will work for you. You don't have to do all of this to win. You don't have to go through this checklist and tick it all off. You can pick and choose the ones that you want to do and will work for you. And we just want to give you lots of ideas, but it doesn't mean you have to do all of it. Yeah, just select what will work for you, and don't be afraid to be brave and to try out things. And if you have any questions, please email me. I will reply. There are 2 more workshops that I'll be doing with Bradley. Bradley will be doing one on manifesto. So there will be more opportunities to ask questions. But if you have any questions that are on your mind right now, please use the chat or the Q&A and let me know what they are. If there are questions that left unanswered, please do let me know as well. I know what you wanted at the beginning was best way to promote on social media. And that is a very specific, targeted way to promote on social media. As I said, we're not going to talk about paid ads today. I'll do a separate video on that. I hope that was helpful. Please let me know. Please let me know in the chat. Any feedback would be amazing. And I'll just stay on the call in case some questions come up. But over to you, Bradley, now for the final slides.
Yeah, so sorry, we've gone we've talked a lot, me and Gagana today. The other workshops will probably be a bit shorter because this one is, I suppose, it's quite a lot of stuff. This is the biggest workshop, whereas the other 3 are on manifestos, posters, and videos, so they'll be a bit more targeted. So don't worry, they won't always be an hour and a half. I'll just go through these really quickly. So you've got your message, you've got your campaign team, you've developed a load of great materials, whether it be stuff you're going to share on social media, whether it's posters, whatever it is. The final 2 points then are schedule. So look at the voting week. You've got all the dates in the handbook. Even before voting week, decide when do things need to be done by to make sure you're going to get everything in time and done in time. And even to the point of like social media, if you set up a page, schedule a load of posts to go out during that voting week, and then you're not worrying about what content you've got on your social media during that week because you've already scheduled it all in advance. So you can save yourself a lot of time and stress during voting week if you schedule things and plan things during the next 5 weeks you've got before voting opens. And the final step, of course, is get out there. So get out there this year. Normally, what I say to people is nothing beats a conversation with a student, a one-on-one conversation with a student. Any social media tricks, no matter how good your manifesto is, no matter how well designed your poster is, nothing can beat having a good chat with a student to get them to vote. Obviously, this year, we're not wanting you to have face-to-face contact with students that you wouldn't otherwise have contact with. So you're going to have to be a little bit inventive about how you do that. You're going to have to be a little bit creative about how you get in contact with students. But the overall message is the same. The more you can get yourself out there and seen by students during voting week, and ideally where you can have interactions with them. So that might be answering questions on a comment thread. It might be doing a live Q&A where you talk to them. Or it might even be that maybe they've messaged your page or something like that. But ways you can try and replicate that sort of face-to-face contact. But yeah, in general, the best way to get votes is to get your name out there to students. Just a quick note about deadlines. All of this is in the handbook. But if you want anything on the candidate page that we're going to set up on our website, please get that to us by the end of nominations, which is the last day of this month, 28th of Feb. And then you've got an extra week to submit your promotional materials and your manifestos. So if you're doing posters and things, we just need to see the design to make sure it's okay. The same rules as anything else. We don't want like factually incorrect things on there or like really horrible sort of derogatory things on there. But other than that, we're happy with it. And please make sure the SU logo is on any of that material. So you've got to get that and the manifesto in by the 5th of March. And if you could also send me a link to any social media sites that you're going to use for your campaign, that's just in case there's any complaints about anything that's put out there by your campaign. I'm sure there won't be, but it helps me to have a link to that so I can go and review it straight away if any complaints come through. We've got 3 more workshops coming up, 1 each week up until the end of February. We've got one on making an election video, one on writing a manifesto, and one on a winning poster. Those are out of order. The election video is the last one. Sorry, I put those in the wrong order. And we'll promise to make those a little bit shorter for those sessions, so a bit more targeted. If you have any other questions, please get in touch on that email address below. Or if you feel free to ask any questions now. I'm going to stop sharing and stop recording at this point.